Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm covering Valentine's Day and the paper, aka the episodes that barely ever get any airtime because, Valentine's Day. Um, and also, because one of these episodes is Valentine's Day, I'm going to give part of the review a couple different visuals today, right about now. Now, isn't that just cute? I'm sorry, this is like my best idea ever. I'm just happy that Rock Bottom has given me such like easy backgrounds to work with. So now we get a little pink background for part of this review. Yeah, that's all I really have to say on that. And of course, as always, gotta say thank you to everyone who's been watching, liking, commenting. Y'all are great. I appreciate every one of y'all. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into these episodes. First up, we've got Valentine's Day. Now, this episode, it's probably where my repeated mantra of season 1 is the cutest SpongeBob SquarePants season, it all comes to a head here. Because I swear to the good Lord above that this episode is legitimately one of the cutest things I've ever seen in my life. And I suppose that's probably a good thing, because this episode makes my heart just want to burst. And isn't that like the kind of feeling you want to have when watching an episode about Valentine's Day anyway? For obvious reasons, this isn't an episode I rewatch very often, but when I do get around to rewatching it, I always find myself melting during the first scene or two. And of course, the very last scene, where Patrick gets his Valentine, because he's just so damn cute. And now, before I continue to gush about certain things, let me say that this is not a perfect episode by any means. While Patrick is funny and entertaining at first, and his rampage is pretty funny, and he's adorable at the very end, I've gotta say that, the end of his rampage gets me just as frustrated as the townspeople. Literally just turn around, man. Good Lord. Oh my God. And even before that, after, SpongeBob shakes Patrick's hand, I think, Patrick's sulking goes on for a bit too long, so it's kind of annoying. And more than that, it's just kind of boring. But I guess that point, the boringness, it's much less grating to me than what I said earlier about, my frustration at Patrick during the end of his rampage when he won't freaking turn around. That was really kind of frustrating. But Patrick is still very cute in this episode, especially before we have to go through, the whole drama of getting his Valentines to him. And really, that's all the bad stuff I have to say about this episode. So, I guess that there's moments of dullness and even irritation. So that's not too shabby, So let me get back to the good, because I love talking about good stuff. I love the backgrounds in this episode, particularly in the beginning part where it's all pink and purple and they're just gorgeous, and I really, really they really just make the vibes of this beginning part. And I just love that this show made unique backgrounds just for this episode. I think that's super cool. And there's also just a lot of production art for this episode on the SpongeBob wiki, so I'll of course be linking that, because I just think it's interesting to look at production art. I don't know, that's just something I like to do. And as for the rest of the episode, I'll admit that Valentine's Day, it's not super funny or really all that funny in general, but it is definitely enjoyable throughout. And like I said before, the beginning of Patrick's rampage is good and funny because y'all know I love me some good dramatics, and Patrick's got that down to a T with all of his screaming and breaking stuff and running around like a madman because he needs love too. I also just find the episode to be really sweet throughout, with SpongeBob giving Valentines to everyone in Bikini Bottom, because we love platonic love, okay? There's other kinds of love that isn't romantic, okay? We love friendships. We love platonic love. The ending of this episode is also just so dang wholesome, and I love the little stinger at the end that Patrick's like, oh, you didn't have to get me anything, after destroying this entire carnival because he didn't get anything. Yeah, I thought that was good. Oh yeah, so there was one thing I remembered when I was making the script for this episode, but I remember there used to be this game on Nick.com. I think that was based on this episode, specifically the part where Patrick, goes crazy. And I also remember there used to be a game called I Love SpongeBob on the Nick.com site. But that was more Valentine's themed in general, not the episode. I don't know. I was a very computer game kid. What can I say? If I could find the links to either of those games, I'll link them. But I'm pretty sure they were on Flash, so you probably can't play them, so I guess I'll find SpongeBob wiki entries for them at least. Anyway, back to the episode. There really isn't that much else left to say about the episode. Like, it's enjoyable, but not hilarious, and I don't personally have much desire to rewatch it very often, so that does knock it down a few points for me. It's not a bad episode at all, but it does feel a bit dull at times. I wish more characters had appeared in it too, like substantially, but that's just a personal aside. And so thinking of all of this together, I think all of this is why this episode sits solidly in my good tier, coming in with a score of 7.8 out of 10. Coming up next, we've got The Paper, another episode that is very rarely aired, but I rewatch it a lot more than Valentine's Day. And the first thing I've got to say about The Paper is that it's time to stop the hate. Okay, people will be hating on this episode left and right, and I will never understand it. Like, what did The Paper do to you? This episode walked so Squidward could run. Though, I guess people hate Squidward too, so let me not even go there. And anyway, this episode is like yet another example of SpongeBob being absolutely adorable in Season 1. Because as I keep saying, Season 1 understood that assignment wholeheartedly. And this episode is also very joke heavy with not as much focus on the plot, which works very well here. So I don't get the hate. Okay, someone needs to explain the hate to me because I don't get it. And thinking back on it, I'd say that the beginning of this episode reminds me a lot of Reef Blower, with Squidward littering on SpongeBob's lawn, and that begs the question of if Squidward even learned his lesson in Reef Blower. I guess not though, but I don't know, maybe this time he learned, and maybe that's the moral of this episode. Okay, don't litter, kids, because if you do, you'll set off a chain of events that leads to you losing absolutely everything. And yeah, don't even get started on how SpongeBob has no continuity, so Reef Blower hasn't even happened, or whatever. Okay, I'm making jokes. Anyway, I think this episode is pretty funny. Now, of course, not every joke hits hard or even hits at all. Like, SpongeBob's initial playing with the paper doesn't really do it for me, but I do find that moment to be pretty cute. So that's a win in my book. And, Gary's there too, so that's also a win. And the paper largely picks up after a few minutes anyway, like probably when SpongeBob starts doing impressions with the piece of paper. And the ending of this episode has a great stinger as well, with Squidward losing everything just to get the paper, and then Patrick walking in and using the gum wrapper as, a gum wrapper, and now Squidward really has, nothing. Yeah. And I also just liked how SpongeBob was enjoying Squidward's stuff. Gary on the clarinet is just absolutely adorable. I also really liked the moment of SpongeBob throwing Squidward's words right back in his face when Squidward's trying to get the paper from him, because that always gets, at least a chuckle out of me. Especially because, I really love how it's done in, flipbook form. Even if, it was just the reused animation with a flipbook thing on top of it, I still think that was cool. And, it was done with complete earnestness on the part of SpongeBob, because, I always say, I don't like when SpongeBob's malicious, though this could have been a perfect Troll Bob moment, and I wouldn't have hated it, so it's, neither here or there. I just, really adore all the little shenanigans SpongeBob gets up to with the piece of paper. I think my favorite part is SpongeBob using the paper to play music and, outshining Squidward. That was just brilliant. And, the animation on SpongeBob in that moment is also just, super adorable. I love how he's, getting into the groove while playing the song. I thought that was great. This episode feels a lot like Idiot Box, which I guess means that episode feels a lot like The Paper, since, this one came first. But either way, y'all know how much I love seeing Squidward break that serious facade he wears. Or maybe you guys don't know that. Have I said that yet? Well, either way, I love when Squidward breaks a serious facade. And, boy, does he do that in this episode. Seeing him slowly get jealous over how much fun SpongeBob has with a single piece of paper, and then, not realizing that the real thing he's jealous of is SpongeBob's childish joy. I feel like this episode has a lot to say to adults in general. And this is why I try to live my life like SpongeBob, finding joy in the smallest things, even a tiny piece of paper. Okay, let me get off my horse real quick, and finish the review. But there really isn't all that much left to say. Just thinking of everything together, thinking of the fun jokes, the fun environment of the episode, I guess. like, I don't know, not necessarily environment, but I can't think of the right words, so we're just gonna call it environment. But thinking of all of this together, like, this episode definitely gets put in my great tier, coming in with a score of 8.5 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine. So I guess this was a pretty short review because there really wasn't that much to say about these two episodes. Like, Valentine's Day, it airs on the side of a bit dull, and the paper, it's more a collection of gags than anything, so it's kind of hard to talk about everything without, like, just laying out every joke. So that's where I'm at. And how do you guys like the graphics for this episode? I decided to be a bit understated this time, you know, not like Scaredy Pants and I Was a Teenage Gary, where I got like a whole new, what is it, AVI? Is that the word? I don't know, whatever, that, and did like the spiderweb graphics, like I did all that, like that was a lot. So this time I just decided to change the background, but then I realized that the pink was kind of clashing with everything, so that's why I didn't like do it for the entire, the entire review, and that's also probably why I'm going to probably not make it the thumbnail of this video. I don't know, I'm still deciding if I want it to be the thumbnail, because I don't know, it just clashes, especially like because the paper is yellow like that, it just doesn't look right. So yeah, but it was fun to do that. And I can't believe that Rock Bottom is about to be next, because like that's where I get like the graphics for like my backgrounds, I guess. Like, if you could tell, like in this closing segment, like that's the road to Rock Bottom. That's, yeah, so that'll be fun. But yeah, that's all I really have to say for these two episodes and for this review as a whole. So I guess I will see you guys next time.